Don't believe in God? We want you to know you are not alone. You're watching Freethought Forum live on Channel 12 or 194 and streaming live at ctvknox.org every Tuesday at 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. Today is December 8th, 2015. I'm your host, No Longer Catholic Dan, and I'm joined with...
I'm Faithless Forrest, and we want you to know that if you don't believe in God, you're not alone. I'm repeating you, I guess.
That's all right. You can never say it enough. You're not alone, atheists. And we want you to also know that the Atheist Society of Knoxville does exist. And if you'd like to find out more, knoxvilleatheist.org is their website. And they host a happy hour meetup at Barley's Tap Room and Pizzeria on 200 East Jackson from 5:30 to 7-ish every Tuesday. So
what's going on
right now? Well, it will be going on in 28 and a half minutes.
All right.
And if you're going out, set your DVR. Watch us later. Check out the first half hour.
Oh, no, we want you to stay and give us a call. This is a call-in show.
It is a call-in show, and we have a phone number that's at the bottom of the screen. Give us a call. Ask us a question, 865-215-2288. Our other sponsor is the Rationalist of East Tennessee. Their website is rationalists.org. And they have several monthly regular meetups as well. The first and third Sundays of each month are lectures with discussion, and the second Sunday is the Skeptics Book Club, and that's coming up this Sunday, and the December book is Lawrence in Arabia, War, Deceit, Imperial Folly, and the Making of the Modern Middle East.
The making, or is it the...
Dismantling?
Yes.
Something's going on over there.
Something.
Trouble in the Middle East. Is that like a headline from 1977?
Yeah, or 1917.
Or 1700s, or all time. The book club meets December 13th at 2 p.m. at Books A Million at 8513 Kingston Pike, Knoxville, Tennessee. And again, those two websites, knoxvilleatheist.org, rationalist.org. Tonight on our show, we're going to be discussing and asking the question, is there a war on Christmas? Now, I personally say Xmas instead of Christmas.
Okay, I love that because X is Chi, which of course means it's Christmas anyway. But they're pointing that the light is flashing. Here we go. Caller, thank you for calling Freethought Forum TV. We're running without a screener. Can you give us a name or a nickname, please?
My name's Joe.
Hello, Joe. Thank you for calling. Do you have a comment or a question for us?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Am I on the air right now?
Yes, you are.
Yes.
I want to know, why are you an atheist?
Oh,
okay. Well, thank you for asking. You want to go first, Dan, or shall I?
Oh, no, you go ahead.
All right. So I'm an atheist because I've never been taught to believe in the Christian myth. Just like probably most Christians don't believe in the divinity of Osiris or Isis of ancient Egypt or Zeus. Did I answer your question, Joe?
Well, yeah, you kind of answered it.
Well, let me give you my explanation as well.
Okay.
I am an atheist because I spent the first 30 years of my life as a Catholic, a practicing Christian Catholic, and strangely enough, 100% of my prayers were never answered.
I bet if you prayed for the sun to rise, it would get answered.
Well, you know, there were some times where you could like work yourself up emotionally and convince yourself that maybe something coincidental happened in your life, but ultimately, we're all just chance.
Okay. So Joe, thank you for calling, and so do you want to tell us about your belief?
Well, I think that you know, if you're raised Catholic and then you turned away, that's unusual. You don't see it too often.
Actually, you see it quite a bit in the Catholic Church. I know most of my friends who were, we were all raised Catholic, and it's about a 50-50. Some have turned away, some have dug their heels in.
Well, what do you think over the last, say, 30 years, the Catholics, well, I guess all religions are the Catholics losing ground with their believers?
I would think that this swarm of negative publicity is definitely hurting the Catholicism faith and their support. I mean, it can't help to be accused of what the Catholic Church is being accused of.
Yeah. So, Joe, I think there was a survey by the Pew Charitable Trust on religious beliefs in the United States, and I believe that non-belief increased something maybe like 20%, and a good half of that came at the expense of Catholics. The other
That's
half,
a lot of people.
the other half came at the expense, I think, of some of the more liberal Christian religions, and I'm going to say it may be Lutherans, and oh goodness, it escapes me now.
And let me ask you this, what do you talk about at the meetings? I mean,
It varies. And by the way, thank you for asking it, because it's kind of a fun question. A lot of people will show up having recently lost their faith, and they might want to talk about the reasons why they lost their faith, what made them fall into disbelief. And some of them have just recently come from an episode, let's say, of examining the Bible very critically. And so they love to talk about biblical contradictions, and
The apologetics that sort of goes along with that.
yeah, and so it is ironic that you'll come to our meetings and you'll sometimes hear us discussing biblical nuances. And then there are some who are traumatized by it and they don't want to talk about it at all. And so there's a spectrum there.
Joe, you sound to me like a man who may be questioning his own religious faith. Is that true?
No, I'm not questioning my own. I got an hour program that came on right before you.
Okay.
Name my program, Spirit of Truth. But I do want to give you a stat
Okay.
that's earth-shaking for me. May not be for you. But the 5 basic simple beliefs in Christianity, now only 2% of the actual church members believe it now. So
Please tell us.
Huh?
Please tell us, what are those 5 beliefs that you
Well,
believe
the
are
5
basic?
basic beliefs is God is the author of the Bible, inspiration. The incarnation, God made flesh, the virgin birth, the blood atonement, and the resurrection. This is the basis of the Christian faith, and I'm shocked. It hit me hard when we did this survey, and this is not a little survey. 5 major churches, big churches around the country did this, and that's what they come with. So I did one on my own, and they're right. Only 2 people out of every 100 actually believe those 5 basic teachings. So.
Well, hopefully we can get that number down to 0.
Listen, thanks for talking to me.
Joe, thank you for calling. You're welcome to call again. Did you have anything more to ask, or?
Oh, I'm not an atheist. You know what?
All righty.
Let me ask you this question. Do you honestly and truly believe in your heart that when you're facing that the Green Reaper, do these people still stay non-believers?
It's a good question. I think.
Well, the answer is that we'll hear stories of deathbed conversions all the time, and we'll also hear stories we know that have been fabricated. Now, if you are asking, do you think that when I feel that my mortality is imminent, that if that's going to change my worldview? Were you asking that question?
Yeah.
I think the answer is no. And, I haven't died yet, but I assume you've heard of Christopher Hitchens. He's very prominent in the non-belief community. He wrote a book called God is Not Great, Why Religion Poisons Everything. And he died a couple, 3 years ago now of esophagus cancer. And he was asked this numerous times near the end of his life, is your belief changing? And he says, no. There's a kind of a fun quote by the famous humorous author Mark Twain. Mark Twain said, I was dead for millions of years before I was alive, and I was not inconvenienced in the least. And I don't expect to be inconvenienced when I'm dead.
Mark Twain said that?
Yes. Now, the thing that many of us will follow up and add to that is that we do worry about the process of dying, and in particular interference in, healthcare choices and stuff by religious-based ideas getting into legislation. The Terry Schiavo case, where you literally had, the U.S. Congress trying to intervene in the health care decisions of an individual, was a terrible spectacle. And so some of us worry about that. That when at end of life, we want to be comfortable when we leave the world.
Right. I often hope that sort of like I will be in and out of consciousness towards the end of my life. And this is sort of a weird thing that I sort of like want to be, where it's like I know I'm dying, but then I sort of black out, but then I kind of come back. And so that I can sort of make, and it's weird, it's a weird thought, but it's like you're going, and then you kind of go to sleep, and you're like, and you wake up, and you're like, okay, it's not going to be bad. So that's sort of where I don't think my religion or my non-belief will change, but I don't know,
Well, you're more at peace now than you were before?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It is so freeing to give up religion.
Yeah, Joe, that is one of the things that does get discussed at our meetings, that people will talk about having had a fear of hell in the afterlife that was traumatizing. And they'll say that giving that fear up is a relief.
So one last question here. Do you think that knowledge makes you or helps you to be a non-believer, atheist? You think knowledge is a key factor in what you're all
You want
about?
to go first, or shall I?
I don't think there's an other answer. Of course, it is the whole basis of our foundation of non-belief is that we have the knowledge of the logical evidence of the world and the laws of physics. We know these things to be true based on science and not religion. It drives the whole atheist movement is knowledge, right? And the whole Christianity is trying to keep you from asking questions, because if you do know the answers, you realize it's not God doing any of this stuff. It's science.
So you've been on both sides.
I have.
So if I were to ask you this question, what do you see in the near future, say in the next generation of Christianity? What do you think is going to happen to the next generation of Christianity? Because there's a lot of confusion right now.
There is a lot of confusion. I think it will continue to diminish. The Catholic Church will get weaker and weaker, as it should, and hopefully within the next generation or so, we can push it even further and get more people to get on the side of science. Because the analogy I make all the time is, we're all of humanity, we're all in this big pirate ship, and we all have an oar in our lap, and we're all pulling on the oar. Now, most of us aren't pulling on the oar, we're just going like this. And that's fine, you don't have to row, but religion is rowing backwards and trying to steer us towards the rocks. As atheists and scientists and reasonists, we are trying to steer us to the next point in humanity. And religion's saying, no, we want to stay where we were. They're fighting us. And so, we can't get further than the moon because we have to make advancements in technology and we have to learn a lot more. And religion's saying, no, don't even bother to look. We have the answers. It's God, right?
Well, there's 41,000 different denominations and there's hundreds of different doctrines. I mean, you could select 10 different churches, Christian churches of 10 different denominations, and you ask one question and you will get 10 different answers. So it's a challenging thing. But anyway, thanks for talking to me.
Joe,
You're welcome,
thank you for
Joe.
calling. You're welcome to call again. Have a good day.
Okay.
Happy holidays.
I would like to say to Joe, if you're still watching, I will happily come on your show if you want to
Alrighty.
discuss this further.
So I was trying to take notes. He says God is the God of the Bible, and it was revealed. There was the virgin birth. I think there was died for atonement.
There was something I hadn't heard of in there. Something about a Shroud of Turin, maybe. Maybe I made that.
No. All right. Well, I'm sorry I didn't take notes as fast as I could have, Joe. Dan, where did we leave off? Is there a war on Christmas going on?
You know, I was thinking about this earlier today, and I've been thinking about since we heard the Starbucks war on Christmas, which is ridiculous, where they had the red cup and they didn't have enough holiday. It had nothing on it. It was just the red cup.
Like my shirt.
Right.
Of course, I've got the little decorative thing,
Right.
and then I hit my microphone.
And, you know, I was thinking the war on Christmas is kind of like the North Korean war on South Korea. And I lived in Korea for a while.
Okay.
And so I know that none of this to be true. The North Koreans are at war with the South Koreans, but the South Koreans couldn't care less.
Couldn't care less.
They're like, what are you talking about?
All
They're
right.
like, whatever.
Why don't you push the button and greet our caller?
All right. Hello, you're on Freethought Forum with your hosts, Dan and Forrest. May we get a name or nickname?
It's Jeffrey from Southern Ontario. 20-year-old Prince here.
Jeffrey, Southern Ontario. Are these the-
Alrighty, thank you for calling. Is it winter up there?
Yeah, actually, it's pretty mild weather today.
Yeah, we are
Not that far north.
we are in the 50s or maybe almost 60s, and I think
Yeah,
I
that's
saw.
about what it is here.
Really?
Except we call it 8 degrees
All right.
metric. Anyways, as for that war on Christmas, next week I'll be conducting that war in South America. We
And
do a Christmas show every year.
who is we?
Christmas party. My wife and her sisters have a charity. It's theirs.
All right.
Explain.
Now, keep in mind that this is a majority country of majority Hindus, Guyana.
Okay.
And my wife and her family are Hindus. They just celebrate the season without religion because it really doesn't make any sense to them being good Hindus. And I get to play Santa Claus. Dress up
Alrighty.
in full regalia in 80-degree temperature because it's hot.
So you're going to go over to Guyana coming up, and you're going to pretend to be Santa Claus?
I play Santa Claus for the Christmas. We do it for the kids. It's
Okay.
poor kids in the neighborhood where they grew up, where my wife and her sisters grew up.
That is really
And there's
interesting.
7 of them. It's called Forever 7 Foundation.
All righty. Well, that's cool. So I can't help but ask the question. You know, do you know? Have like they seen the Charlie Brown Christmas special and the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer special? How up on American culture are they?
American, not much. It was a British colony. They very much the way Britain would celebrate the Christmas season. A whole
Okay.
lot of snowflakes and Santa Claus and Father Christmas. They put out the Christmas cards. They have sleds and reindeer pictured all over the place. It's just the religious aspect of Christmas. It doesn't click because they're not religion.
Yeah.
There are
Well.
Christians there's lots of them, but the majority are Hindus. The second group would be Muslims.
Uh-huh.
And the smallest minority would be various Christian sects.
So
All right.
they're Christian because of people going to their land and spreading what's that called? Missionary work, right? They're Christians because of missionaries. They're not Christian by like choice, right?
Well, there was also black Guyanese. They descended from slavery, and when they were brought over as slaves to the estates, they were Christianized by missionaries. But most of the Christian customs are there of Christmas and Easter too. On Easter, they go fly kites. The idea of running off to a Christian church for Easter, it doesn't click with them. So they fly kites on Easter. That makes sense.
All right.
Makes as sense as anything else.
No, I just thought I'd throw in what a good atheist does for an actual Christmas.
Well, that's mighty thoughtful of you.
And the reason for the season, of course, is the axial tilt.
Ah,
Yes, indeed. Now, is Guyana equatorial?
Yeah, they're a few hundred miles above the equator, north coast of South America.
Yeah. So, I'm.
The thing is, it doesn't get very dark there. The seasons, light to darkness doesn't change in more than 15 minutes for the entire year.
Yeah, on the equator is that location on the Earth where every day is
Just a
of the
bit
same
south of
length.
there. It goes through northern Brazil.
I lived in
Be about
Guam for 4 years, and Guam is 13 degrees north of the equator, and it is balanced day and night, and beautiful on the beach, 86 degrees every single day.
All righty. Well,
We
It's a
appreciate
pleasure
it.
to talk to you.
Ontario Santa, thank you so much for telling us about how it's practiced in other parts of the world.
We'll post the video online. I'll tell you when to look for it.
That'll be
Talk to you
great.
again, guys. Have a happy season,
All righty.
whatever you celebrate yourselves.
Happy Pasta Mass to you.
Merry
Whatever.
pagan holiday. Merry pagan ritual to all.
All righty. Well, that was great.
Had you talked to him before?
Oh, he's a regular viewer.
Okay.
And he calls in, frequently. I have no idea where we left off.
We were
I
still
think-
talking about
was
the
there a
war.
war on Christmas?
Right. Is there a war on Christmas? And I was explaining how it's sort of the analogy I was using was the North Koreans are at war with the South Koreans.
That's right.
And the South Koreans are like, what? Like whatever. And it's just the North Koreans who are like festering and angry and creating this war. And occasionally they'll be like, oh, you're running missions. And so they'll shoot some missiles into the ocean and they'll be mad. And it's sort of like the Catholics are doing the same thing. It's like, hey, we're not being looked at enough, and we need to act like we're being persecuted so that we can get more attention. And so, because really what all religion has is sort of the emotional connection, the emotional appeal, And so if they can't get people riled up, they really don't have anything because they don't have any evidence to base their traditions on. So it's just like, everyone's against us. So it's like, fight back.
So yes, one of the ways that it's been observed that punny dictators motivate their people is to declare war on a neighbor, and so you unite your people by finding or inventing a common enemy.
Right.
But of course, I first heard the phrase "the war on Christmas" with the respect to the name Bill O'Reilly. And I must admit, I'm TV free enough that I don't know if he's still trying to ride that hobby horse yet or not.
I would imagine he is. I don't watch his show, but he is doing anything to garner attention, so this is right up his alley. I can imagine him screaming about Starbucks.
Okay. I was going to say who might have led the charge against Starbucks for their all-red cup.
I don't know who specifically called them out on it.
What did the audience say?
What was the...
Josh
Feurenstein. Oh, yes, I do know what you're talking. Josh Feurenstein or something like that. He said that there's a war on Christmas and that they've done away with any of the Christ symbols or whatever. But if you go into Starbucks, there's reindeer and snowmen and all sorts of themed stuff.
Well, reindeer and snowmen are secular too, though.
Right.
I made snowmen.
Oh, yeah.
Well, if you think about it, the Bible says that Yahweh made man, and I don't believe that, but I know I've made a snowman.
Maybe you're Yahweh? Maybe you're snow...
I
I've made
hadn't
snow
thought of
angels,
I've done that too.
so maybe we're deities?
I guess.
Something like that. But what I wanted to ask you is, do you see any evidence? Because we talk to lots of atheists, and never at our meetings are we like, all right, guys, battle plan, how are we going to destroy Christmas? We couldn't care less.
There's a spectrum there.
Sure.
And by that, Christmas is an opportunity that some people take to make government bow to their wishes and display religious symbols. And so you'll see this strong effort to get nativity scenes on government property.
Right. We actually have a news story about that.
So this is, using the government's resources for promotion of a particular religion's story. So that is something that, the Freedom from Religion Foundation, the American Civil Liberties Union, and I'm drawing a blank on American Atheists. They'll object to that, and litigation results, so that the government's resources are not being misappropriated.
Right.
After all, if a government official is using government space to promote his or her religion, that's not much different than the government official, let's say, telling the highway department to go home and pave his or her driveway as well. It is theft of resources.
Right.
So that's one aspect where we're trying to say, no, the government should not be hijacked to promote anyone's religion or support anyone's religion. But we've had a visitor to the Rationalists of East Tennessee, Tom Flynn, who the organization he heads up escapes me now. It might be Council for Secular Humanism, Whatever organization it is that he's part of, they actually run the Robert G. Ingersoll Museum up in New York. But he's written a great book about the history of Christmas. I learned a lot from. But he also makes a point that he goes to work on December 25th because he'll say that some believers will get the misunderstanding that you really aren't truly an atheist if you take the day off, that you believe in God but you're mad at him. You've certainly heard this, you believe in God but you're mad at him. And so he makes a point to go to work on the 25th. I've sometimes thought I really ought to call the man and
see if he actually does.
Is it busy today? Do you want me to read you a story or anything?
Maybe he's getting overtime, It could be that reason. I don't go to work on the December 25th because I'm a teacher and we get the winter break, so I get 2 weeks off. And I'm not going to say, well, I'm going to be here the 25th. Of course not. But
the whole point about the 25th is that, once upon a time, the calendars move around, and once upon a time, it was the winter solstice. And the 21st, the 25th, I'm not going to quibble over a few days. And in fact, you could argue that by the time that what we're really celebrating is the return to longer days. And so we're not celebrating the dark day, the 21st or the 22nd of December. We're celebrating the return of light. We got a blinking light again.
We do have a blinking light.
All right. Thank you for calling Freethought TV. Can we get a name or a nickname, please?
It's Charles from Central Illinois.
Well, hello, Charles. Thank you for calling, and happy holidays to you. Do you have a comment or a question for us?
Yes. One of the things that it seems to be missing from a lot of the people about and their war on Christmas is that until the 1840s, the vast majority of Americans, as we think of them today, didn't have, quote, a Christmas holiday as such.
You mean so like on December 25th, prior to the 40s, it was just...
No, something more. There was no celebration. In fact, it was considered by many of the strong Puritan style and Calvinist as a pagan intrusion upon Christianity and had outlawed it.
So Charles, I was just mentioning Tom Flynn and his book about the history of Christmas. And in it, he talks about a real important event, and it was when Queen Victoria married, I think his name was Edward, who was German, that he
brought... His name wasn't Edward.
Say again?
It was Albert.
Albert.
And
all right, there we go.
House of Gothic something or other.
There we go. And
he brought the Christmas tree tradition.
Right. And that tradition and the presence under it creates a sort of celebratory atmosphere that appeals to kids that I suspect is part of the reason for the growth of the season. That the poem "The Night Before Christmas" was written somewhere, I think, a little bit after that time. So these are echoes of the fact that the holiday was recovering from the Puritan suppression that it experienced in places.
One factor to note is that at that time, the British Empire was the largest and most powerful economically and military state in the world. So, as noted by one of your previous callers, they spread those concepts and ideas adopted by the British upper class to the rest of the world. And America, being, especially speaking English and everything but name in many regards, adopted them as well.
So are you saying the things that we sort of correlate to Christmas, the tree, the presents, those things are...
Singing choruls and so forth.
It's all secular, really.
Well, they're rather more recent.
Okay.
The matter more recent. There were recent introductions based on, you remember the Grimm's fairy tales? Okay? A lot of the concepts and ideas that wound up in Christianity's Christmas time is based on pre-Christian pagan concepts and ideas, as you have noted. For instance, in Centinela, one of the symbols that the Romans used at the major temples during Centinela was evergreens, because they never lost their tree, never lost their leaves. And so forth, they were a symbol of undying life.
Yeah, I'm fond of telling people that I think I understand the true meaning of Christmas, and that it's the relief from the monotony of winter by bringing a pine tree indoors and smelling that smell that you think of as the like being in the woods during the summer.
Yeah,
That smell
with the
is
knowledge of the seasons changing. It became a major celebration, especially in the northern latitudes, where the large European area is, which became the dominant military and economic power from about around 1760 to now. Okay, so we spread that cultural bit with us.
The point I was going to make is that it's an olfactory season. It is driven by a lot of smells.
Oh yes,
Cookies.
and so when they start complaining about a quote war on Christmas, I like pointing out that prior to the 1840s, Christmas was viewed in much of Calvinistic and puritanical America as evil paganism.
Yes,
So who's waging what war? You know?
that's right.
They're introducing these evil concepts from paganism and so forth into a, quote, Christian society, unquote. So, it's like, have these guys been eating the long mushrooms in their morning omelets or something?
I guess. There was a marvelous program I saw about, it was interviewing World War I veterans. I was pretty young, and they would have looked like they must have been in their 70s and 80s. But they were interviewing a Scottishman who talked about learning Christmas practices, holiday practices, while a soldier fighting in World War I. And then when he went back to Scotland, he was accused of having adopted pagan practices by, Scottish relatives. So even in, what is that, something like 1914, 17, apparently Scotland was rather puritanical. Like that.
Yeah.
All right.
So,
Charles, thank you so much for your call. We really appreciate it.
And
thank you much.
let's wish you a happy holidays, happy pasta mass, or whichever you choose.
And a festus for the rest of us. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Well, that seems like a good time to take a break. You're listening to Freethought Forum with your host, No Longer Catholic Dan and Faithless Forrest, and we will be right back.
Make it so.
Are we good? All right.
Maybe it's not going to run.
We're not sure if we're on break or not, but
You may have to talk to me a little
we'll
bit
keep
more.
talking.
So this might be a good time to remind the viewers about the book club that's coming up.
The book club, yes, we do have a book club. It is sponsored by the Rationalists of East Tennessee. Find out more information, rationalist.org. Are we still talking here? Yes, keep going. All right. So the second Sunday, which is coming up this Sunday, December 13th at 2 p.m., the book club will meet, and they're reading Lawrence in Arabia, War, Deceit, Imperial Folly, and the Making of the Modern Middle East. And again, that is at Books A Million, 8513 Kingston Pike, Knoxville, Tennessee. You don't have to have read the book to show on up.
But of course it helps.
It does help, especially if you can contribute.
Well, I've been a member of RET for over 10 years. I've been to book club numerous times, and I've only actually read the book prior to the show at most, 5-10 times.
I just learned how to read.
All right. Often afterwards we go out to lunch or dinner together, so it's a social activity as well. So the important part about the Atheist Society of Knoxville and the Rationalists of East Tennessee is that if you don't believe in God right here in East Tennessee, you're not alone.
You're not alone. You got two people right here. You can come hang out with us.
All righty. So, more war on Christmas?
More
Or
war
did
on
you have
Christmas.
some in
Well,
the
I have some news, but one of the news stories is actually discussing the war on Christmas. And this comes from the the FFRF.org.
Freedom from Religion Foundation.
Freedom from Religion Foundation. In December 2011,
Dan, we've got a call.
we do have a call, so
Why
let's
don't
go to
we take
that
them?
because I have something to say about.
Greet
that
our
story.
caller.
Hi, you're on Freethought Forum. Who am I speaking with?
Hey, this is Joe again. I just wanted to add one thing about the war on Christmas.
Okay.
Everything you guys said is all correct. The guy in the red there, or the gentleman in the red shirt there, he hit the nail on the head when he was talking about solace. But Christmas, the date, December the 25th, goes back 4,000 years before Christ, when Nimrod and the boys they had all kind of hanky-panky going on. But the bottom line is, when the celebration, and he's right, it's been a pagan celebration for 4,000 years. The reason why the Christians got in the act is they didn't want to celebrate a pagan holiday, so secretly they said, well, we're going to make it the birth of Christ's remembrance. And undercover or secretly, I don't know how they could do that, but they celebrated their Christ while the other people celebrated the pagan. I also want to say I do 25 legends and myths on Christmas, and don't start laughing at me. But in my day, I'm 74. When I was a teenager, my world was a mistletoe.
All righty. So, Joe, you said something
Yeah.
very interesting there, and then you told a joke, and I've lost it. You were talking about the Christians adopting it, and
December 25th had nothing to do with Christmas. They just added it. But this Bill O'Reilly, he's a nut. Okay.
Joe, I remember my question.
Yeah.
Maybe you can help me with this. So there's another kind of funny thing that happened along the same lines, and that is that the Jewish people observe the Sabbath from Friday night to Saturday night. So Saturday is the Sabbath. And Christians observe it as if it's on Sunday. And
Well,
it makes me wonder, how did that come about? What do you
Well, the
know,
reason why
think of the
Christians
story?
celebrate Sunday is because we honor the resurrection.
So I've heard that said, but it's still it's called the Sabbath, which is mislabeling it. It seems disingenuous to call it the Sabbath.
Well, you mean Sunday?
Yes.
No, I've never called Sunday the Sabbath. Sabbath is Jewish. It's what you said, from Friday to Saturday. But when you're dealing with, anytime you're dealing with religion, you're going to hit mass confusion. I asked a young lady where I was working, and this is really, really true. I asked her, I said, why is it that when people join a church, or they think they become, they get saved, or they think they're saved, or they join a church, why is it that something in their brain shuts off? It's like they go stupid, okay?
I think it shut off prior to their decision.
Well, I'm going to.
Well, her answer was, when you do that, when you join a church, or say you get saved, you become a follower, and then you do what the doctrine of the church is, whichever one you're in, you follow that doctrine.
Well, could it be that they're, so to speak, giving it the benefit of the doubt? They're trying it on for size.
Well, you got to kind of look. I don't want to get into a heavy discussion or an argument here, but I believe that there is a God. So, you have to. Something tells me that. I mean, I can't look at your body. Your body is fearfully and wonderfully made. I can't look at you and say you just happened. See, that really troubles me. Something that, if I can use the word, magnificent, because that is indeed a wonder. You're fearfully made, and I'm saying, how could you just happen? You can't. There's got to be some kind of superior being. The problem that we have is these different men who start these different religions. They bring on the mass confusion.
So, which religion is the divine inspired word of God?
when you pick up the Word and you read the Word, however the Holy Spirit reveals it to you, here's what I say on my program. I got the Spirit of Truth right on before you. Here's what I say. If God is your Father, I mean, I don't care what religion you are. If God is your Father and Jesus is your Savior and the Holy Spirit dwells in you, you're my brother. I don't care who you are, where you come from. And the church today cannot seem to grasp that simple truth.
So it sounds like you're slightly angry with the current church.
I'm angry with all of them. I mean, hey, what do you think about this? We love Jesus so much that we're going to close his house on his birthday. What does that tell you?
We're going to what?
That we're going to close his house on his birthday.
Well, yeah, can you get in the church on Christmas Day, the day they choose?
I had to go to church every single Christmas.
Well, Catholics have masses. I'm talking about the Protestant, so to speak, Christian churches. They close. They don't open on Christmas Day. They close the church down.
I'm learning something here. I'd have never thought that.
I had to go to
that's
church
fact.
every Christmas.
Well, although I
And
grew
I
up,
hated it.
Joe, I grew up completely non-believing, but I grew up in an area in Minnesota with a large Catholic population, and so I've assimilated some cultural norms that are Catholic, maybe without realizing it in this particular case. I assumed that everyone was going to something like a Christmas Mass. It's called Christ Mass, after all.
Yeah.
And so, the other large Christian denomination that would be in Minnesota would have been, Lutherans. Would Lutherans close their churches on Sunday? On Christmas Day?
Some of them are open. Very few are open. Most of them are closed. But my point is this.
Maybe he's right.
If we choose December the 25th, the saying, they coin all kind of phrases, Jesus is the reason for the season. Well, if Jesus is the reason for the season, why don't we go visit Jesus on his birthday? We can't. The churches are closed.
Well, you've given me something to research. I'm going to call friends back in Minnesota and ask about their practices.
And there might be a few open, but more than 99% are shut down. They're closed. And I want to say one thing about this O'Reilly guy. He's an opportunist. The man lies like a rug.
Yeah.
I mean, I can go down 4 blocks from my house right now, and I can go into the Walmart, and they got rows of T-shirts magnifying Christmas. You name it, they got it. You can go in in Walmart any day of the week, and somebody's praying for somebody. So he like I said, he is an opportunist, and who cares if you want to say Merry Christmas or Happy Holiday? Who cares?
I agree.
If he says we should say holy day, it's holiday. Well, holiday means holy day.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of curious about you, because you're the very first. I haven't heard many Catholics say what you just said. You went atheist after all that. That surprises me.
Well, I don't know if you heard me, but I said I would be happy to come on your show and discuss it with you if you want me to.
Sure, anytime.
All right, I will do.
But I don't bother other people want to call in. But you get calls from long distance, don't you?
Yeah, we do.
Yep. Thank you so much. It was a
Take care,
pleasure
man.
speaking with you, and I hope you have good family times come the holidays.
That's very interesting, because he's clearly a believer. He's of some denomination.
Well, I've watched
Christianity.
excerpts of his show.
Okay.
It's on the monitor here before our show, so I've watched portions of it in the past. But it was interesting to interact with him. Thank you so much, Joe.
Yeah, and because he's clearly upset with some aspect of the current model of Christianity, but I think his point was that, like, the Bible is the Word of God, and it doesn't really matter what man has made of it, because you have to read it, and then it seemed like he was saying all the religions are kind of silly. You just have to believe this book, right?
Well, as I said, I was a little sorry. I should have asked him when he called back about the 5 points.
Oh,
maybe
yeah.
he'll call in another week, and we can get these 5 points written down. In the news, so the Freedom from Religion Foundation was in the news for what?
Right. So in 2011, the FFRF and a Michigan member, Doug Marshall, sued the city of Warren, Michigan, for refusing to place a winter solstice display alongside a religious nativity scene. And I always love.
In other words, it was the city was granting an exclusive privilege to a Christian organization that they weren't granting to others,
Correct.
non-Christians.
Right. And so it was reported this year that the May Reason Prevail solstice language is included as part of the table display in the City Hall atrium the entire month of December, so no lawsuit was necessary. So they had the nativity scene, and then since then they've removed that and they created this wording called...
When you say removed, I bet it's on
Well, it's still
side by
probably
side.
there, right.
I would think side by side.
And I heard last year, I can't remember what city, possibly something in one of the Carolinas, where a satanic group put out their version of a nativity scene and were allowed to put it up right next to...
Yes.
I always love when the sort of niche groups kind of try to do that.
So for viewers, the Satanic Temple, they go by TST, the Satanic Temple, is a group that has, in numerous instances, stepped up to say, when Christians are getting a privilege here, we expect the same. They have commissioned a statue for display on, I think it would be the Capitol lawn in Oklahoma, because there are 10 Commandment monuments on display. And the legislature of Oklahoma decided that rather than allow equal access to this group, that they would actually take the 10 Commandments monument down. And I believe it was, donated to some church that was willing to accept it. Mm. So now the 10 Commandment monuments is on private property, which is all well and fine, because that private people can do what they want with their property.
Right. I really do like that dichotomy where it's open to all. If you guys, here's the space, put up whatever you want. But they said no space for anyone because the TSS, the Satanic Temple.
The Satanic Temple.
We would rather not allow them the same space, so so no one can have any.
Yeah. One of the founders or principals of it, he goes by a name something like Lucius Greaves. It's a fictional name, a nom de plume, I guess. But the point behind it is that their stuff is meant to sound somewhat creepy on the surface, but in reality, it's reality-based. They essentially promote a scientific worldview, and then they add the word Satan to it because it will make some people who are not capable of recognizing when they're being mocked,
trolled,
it'll make them just go ballistic.
Yeah, I know. I love it.
Yeah.
I love
it. They've been very effective where, in some instances, reason works with some groups, but in some instances, reason does not work, and so the Satanic Temple is effective in some situations.
Now, I can't speak for the Satanic Temple, but I kind of think it's a tongue-in-cheek sort of temple. I don't think they really believe in Satan or would follow his works, or maybe they do.
They have 7 principles.
Let's see that
you can
slide.
find it on their website. Do we have something?
The Satan slide up there. We'll get to some of our Christmas slides that we had made. We don't want to waste them. There he is.
There's Satan Santa. Yeah, well, I think that Santa is a jolly old elf. Remember, my exposure is things like the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer special, and so to me, Santa was this guy that Mrs. Claus was always trying to fatten up in time.
He would like join a gym January 1st and then forget, March 1st he'd quit.
No, he was skinny and
he'd slim up after holidays.
That's it.
Yeah, he'd make the New Year's resolution, lose the weight, and then they're like, "Oh, we got to fatten you back up. It's almost Christmas time."
Yeah.
So one question I did want to ask you, it is about the Santa myth. Now, I believe that if you are teaching religion in your home and you're saying there's a heaven and there's a hell, that's tantamount to child abuse. Now, because you're making this child live in fear, right? Now, you're sort of doing this, you're almost doing the exact same thing with the Santa myth, and now we have the elf on the shelf. And
Santa is a little more mild.
He's a little,
he
not
brings
really
a lump of coal.
Has anyone ever got that? No. But what would you think about parents nowadays? Do you think it's harmful, or is it just sort of like, it's fun and games, let's not make a big deal out of it? Like, if you were raising a child, what would you do when it's time to talk about the Santa thing?
That'd be a great thing for viewers to call if you've been a believer, and then maybe lost belief. How did you handle that with your children? I grew up non-believing, and we had a tree, and we helped Mom wrap presents. There was no secret about how it all worked. It was a festive time. And I think by the time I got into school, my mother had warned me that some people actually believed this Santa stuff. And, so I guess I would have been 5 years old, kindergarten age. And I remember kind of thinking, really? Really?
People believe it?
Yeah.
You thought it was just sort of a fun...
Even as a 5-year-old, it felt that I felt a little shock. And I think my mother was probably trying to make sure that I didn't burst anyone's bubble, that, it's their parents' job to tell them when Santa is myth, and that it wasn't my job, even as a 5-year-old. I don't actually remember any conversation with another child about the reality of Santa.
Oh, I do. I totally do.
All right, now I got to hear. We got 8 minutes.
Well,
and viewers, give us a call and tell us about your loss of Santa faith story.
Right. So I, had the Catholic myth and the Santa myth, and I believed 100%. And I remember in 3rd grade, my teacher just saying to all of us, "Oh, none of you believe in that silly old man, do you?" And we're just like record scratch. And I'm like, what?
Really?
What do you mean? And then I go home and I asked my dad. I go, my teacher today. She said that you don't believe in the silly old man Santa, and he's like, well, let me tell you something. And he wasn't ready to do it, and I wasn't ready to hear it. So he kind of gave me a half you think that's a real plausible? And I was like, I don't know. And he's like, let's just go ahead and not tell your brothers, and we'll kind of. But yes, Mom and I do it. So ultimately,
so he brought you into the fold.
Got me into the fold.
Part of it was to say, you're going to help us with your brothers,
right?
Then, right.
He's like, and it's more fun when you believe. That was his selling point. And I remember the next day at school going, do you remember when she said that yesterday? And everyone would be like, yeah. What'd you do? And we all talked about it, and we all came to the conclusion, it's more fun if you believe. So we're just going to kind of pretend. That was me and my buddies. And after that point, but it's you can't unring that bell. It's definitely less fun as a kid when you know that, oh man, my mom's down there at 2 a.m. putting our stuff under the tree. And it was, it was, I wouldn't say it was traumatizing, but it hurt Christmas for me. It definitely took the fun out of it. Now, I haven't raised any kids. I don't know if I ever will, but I was wondering, because I am a teacher and I interact with kids, it's how do you handle it? Because they still believe. Mine is, I'm not going to say a word about it. That's not my place to say.
There we go, yeah.
So
it's inappropriate to be teaching other people's children about these things.
So, but I've heard like famous atheist Penn Jillette. He is a devout atheist, and he and his wife are adamantly opposed to any sort of nonsensory, any sort of untrue, and so they're anti. And I don't know is it harmful for a kid to believe in Santa?
Well, I can say for myself that the holidays were absolutely fun, and maybe so. You talked about it being less fun, so you had a delusioning experience with it.
Yes.
I have never had that, never. To me, it's still the same fun it was when I was 4 and 5 years old.
Because it hasn't changed.
Because it's the Christmas tree, there's eggnog, there's wrapping presents for friends and family, and the smell of the tree in the house. We've got a fake tree at home now, but I buy some of these scenting things
right.
so that I got some of the smell in the house.
Right.
And I mourn when it's over.
Yeah.
It's over too soon, in my opinion. I think the holiday is coincident with the winter solstice, but winter drags on well beyond that because, of course, the Earth is a big object to heat up and cool down, and so it lags. It's not really until something like early March when things start noticeably warming, when winter gets over. And so the kind of depression or melancholy of winter in Minnesota, where I grew up, would really be relieved a little more if the holidays lasted till more like Groundhog's Day. That's what we need, Groundhog's Day.
Well, on one hand, I agree with you, but on the other hand, if you're making it even into a bigger production, the higher you go up the mountain, the farther down you got to come,
It could taper up more slowly.
Okay.
And in Minnesota, the Twin Cities, St. Paul and Minneapolis, have decided to divide between them two festive events. Minneapolis, which is the city of lakes, has the Aquatennial, which involves water skiing and lake activities in the summer. St. Paul gets the Winter Carnival. We sometimes said that we had short shift there, short sheet, whatever that phrase is.
But
the Winter Carnival involves ice fishing contests, snowmobiling races,
That sounds
skiing
awesome.
races, and so it can be fun. And they build an ice castle. And if you go online and research the ice castles from like the 1800s, they're spectacular things that they built out of ice. And of course, sometimes people got hurt with them because, multi-story things of
Really,
ice.
I'll check these out. This sounds awesome.
And by the time I was a kid in the 60s and 70s, they made them out of packed snow. And I left Minnesota in 1985. And in 1986, they made an ice castle out of ice again for the first time ever. I've never seen one.
And in 1987, the Minnesota Twins won the World Series, and I will never forgive them as a St. Louis Cardinals fan.
All right. Well, we've got a couple minutes left. Are there some high points we want to hit any further in the news?
Well, I did want to mention, and I didn't want this to go without being talked about, was the Colorado shooting at the Planned Parenthood. And I didn't want it to be, it sort of got passed over with the next shooting that happened right on its heels, the San Bernardino, California shooting. But if you back it up, we had some real-life Christian terrorism take place in Colorado, and that's the term I'm going to use. And you don't have to agree with me, but whoever that was, went in and shot those people in the name of Christianity, and that is nothing but terrorism. And I don't want to end on a down note, but I did not want to have this glossed over.
Well, to call a war on Christmas seems a bit sort of hijacking the word war, because war is
Horrible.
It's institutionalized killing, and and unfortunately, the holy books often condone that.
Mm-hmm.
The Hebrew Bible has chapter after chapter about how the followers of Moses took the promised land, and it wasn't empty. There's an interesting number associated by Robert Ingersoll that the Bible says that the inhabitants of the land were 7 times the amount of the Hebrews who came in, and you can infer that they were on the order of something like 120,000. So that means something like 1.2 million persons were killed by the Hebrew exodus into their lands, if the Bible be true. Well, we're coming up at the end of the hour here. This has been Freethought Forum, a program by the Atheist Society of Knoxville and the Rationalists of East Tennessee. You can leave us feedback at freethoughtforum@yahoo.com and tell your friends to watch us online at CTV KNOX. We're here most Tuesdays from 5 to 6 p.m. Did we have any more in the wrap-up?
Well, if you want to leave us a voicemail, you can call us at 865-272-9060. And just wanted to tell you that the opinions expressed on this show are the hosts and not any official opinion of the Ask or RET. Thank you to Sam for technical support, and thank you for Forrest for helping me out here today. And remember,
if you don't believe in God, you're not alone.
You're not alone. We're right here.
And thank you, Joe and Jeffrick and Charles and Joe again. We hope you'll call again, and happy holidays.
Merry Pagan Day.